Well, my political career started in our car with the Sookmans in the back seat. And we were driving to go to dinner, I guess, and coming home. And I was complaining about Palm Springs, the way it was going in the future. And Carol Sookman said to me, why don't you quit talking and do something about it, run for the city council? And that thought had never occurred to me. And so I said, yeah, that's a thought. And I thought about it. And then I finally decided to do it. And of course, you know, there's technical stuff you got to do when you run for office these days, like, you know, filings with the state and what have you. So I somehow or another I knew of Grace Jablow. I don't know if she was a client of mine at that time.
I think she was.
I just don't. Anyway, I talked to her, and she had done this for other campaigns, so she knew all the ropes. And she was my right arm. She, you know, she really made the whole thing very easy for me. And I ran, and I got elected.
So she actually helped you organize fundraisers and whatever support.
It's more. It was more the technical filings I was worried about. But I mean, anything. Well, I know she did actually. I made arrangements for me to go to radio stations and be interviewed. She knew people. And I don't, you know, that's sort of vague in my memory. Exactly what she did, but she was great. When I ran for mayor after 4 years, she did the same thing for me.
And she did it very graciously.
Yeah, she was.
Because she did not want you to run for mayor.
Yeah.
At that time.
And she just thought it wasn't a good idea that I would have a hard time. And of course, then, you know, at that time, I didn't think there were really any viable candidates. But then Frank Bogart, who was a former mayor and an old guy, decided he would run. I don't know whether there was any, they convinced him because they didn't want me to be mayor, who knows. But anyway, he ran, and part of my campaign was I would not, gather, I would not do fundraising, or I would stop fundraising at $10,000. Which I did, and he raised
a lot.
I think he raised close to 100,000, and not necessarily that that's what got him elected and not me, but anyway, he got elected and I didn't.
Huh. And so you decided at that point that you were, so you served one term on city council?
Yeah, 4 years.
Huh, for some reason I thought it was more. So you decided you could have stayed on the city council and decided not to?
Well, no, I was defeated. You know, it was the term is 4 years. At the end of my first 4 years, I ran for mayor, Miss Mayor. Grace wanted to be this, you know, just run for council again.
Oh, you would have had to run again for council.
Yeah, every
for
4 years
term,
you have
right.
to run.
Had you ever campaigned for anything else before? Had you ever run for any office of any kind?
I held offices, but not. I think I was chairman of one of the committees in Palm Springs, political action or something. I forget, but that was appointed. That wasn't elected.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I was ever elected to was, I suppose. Well, I was elected to the Temple Board, which was no big deal. I was elected to Palm Valley School, but that was no big deal. I mean, you know, they needed people, so it was pretty easy. And I had experience from being up from Northern California.
Mm-hmm. Both of you have done a lot of, I don't know if it's a lot of political activism, but at least community, you know, a lot of community activities and leadership. And what inspired you to do that? Were your parents also really involved in their communities? And in leadership positions?
I don't think either one of our families were.
Well, my mother was quite active in the
Brandeis.
In Brandeis.
Uh-huh.
She was one of the founding members of Brandeis in the Bay Area, and she was appointed to the national board of Brandeis and the women's division. And she went back and marched in the at graduation time, you know, with the black cap and gown one time, and which was a thrill for her. And I don't know, it was always kind of instilled within us. How, I'm not sure.
I know, it was basically, I think with both was tzedakah. But where we got that, I think it was inherent. I don't think that, because my dad was not, as I remember, well, he didn't probably have the ability, you know, as a younger man. And I don't know, I was just, you know, both Mom and I were inspired to do things, you know, particularly with Israel. And I don't know, I remember Sean Ankin and I, our first exposure going to a Federation event up north, you know, where it was fundraising. We realized after about 3 minutes that we were not in the right place, because they were, you know, they were getting thousands of dollars in donations, and Shell and I were just starting out in the world. Neither of us had any money, so I remember, but we both got out of that room as fast as we could, long before it was over.
I remember that.
I mean, we
were living in our first apartment.
Yeah.
We really
ran home with our tails between our legs.
And did you? I think you did, Dad. I don't know if you did, Mom. Did community, you know, support or action or whatever outside of the Jewish community too?
Yeah, I think Mom was the first one to start.
So what did you do? And I don't know, I can't remember if I asked you this before when I was here. It's really
I remember.
It's really interesting to me, so if you have to say it twice.
What did I do? I was very active as the kids were in school. All of you kids were in school, and I was president of the, wasn't called the PTA, when the kids went to Wildwood.
Oh.
Your kids went to Wildwood.
Mm-hmm.
The Mothers Club, I think. And I was president of that.
Oh.
And I was active in, seems to me I was active in Planned Parenthood, and the United Way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so I always tried to participate to the best of my ability.
Yeah, we were both on various boards. It's, you know, you start thinking about it. I remember I was on the board of Planned Parenthood in the Bay Area. I never did anything with the associations.
What associations?
That's the wrong word. Something you mentioned just now.
Oh, United Way?
No, I was on the United Way too, and then I was on the American Jewish Committee. I was the local chairman of that.
So what would your duties be, or what did you do as, for example, chairman of the American Jewish Committee?
I started the chapter, and you know, it was basically a group of our friends.
As I remember, we went back to American Jewish Committee National Convention.
Probably.
Where was that?
I don't remember where.
In the East?
East of here?
No, actually it was not in the East. It was, remember we met in Los Angeles. We met some real nice people. We were friendly with long distance for a while. I can't remember what the heck their names were, but at that point, that's a long time ago. That must have been in the late 50s or early 60s. I haven't thought about that in years and years and years and years. But I remember we had some, there was a doctor.
From Portland.
Well, there's some people from Portland too they were all at that meeting, but there was an LA doctor, an older guy, and I remember I liked him.
Oh, Max.
Yeah.
Max Bay.
Yeah, Jesus, you're amazing.
I don't know where I come up with these things, but I think that was his name.
What do you remember? What you were complaining about back to the city council? What you didn't like the way it was run, and what you did about it? I mean, what's your legacy as a
well, the problem like most politicians, once I got elected, I didn't pay any attention to what I am on. But you know, I remember one of my things was we were wasting electricity because the lights of the fields were on, you know, like at 10 o'clock and nobody was anywhere around. which was probably.
Well, that was during the energy crisis, right? So that was a
I
thing.
don't know if there was an energy crisis when I ran, but that.
Probably.
I think that was just one of those things where, a politician, you see the same thing today. Politicians pick on some issue that really doesn't mean a thing, but it sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds good to, there's a point. I was probably a lousy politician. I remember I got the Catholic school a stoplight on Ramon.
Oh, St. Teresa's?
Yeah. They were dying for something, and the staff didn't want to put it up.
Huh.
But eventually we got it. And I don't know if that swung any votes for me, but
Well,
that's why you do those kind of things.
right.
I stuck my neck out on that. I rode with police. I honestly, I just don't remember. I got my name in the New York Times once.
You did?
My one and only time, I think.
Or what?
I got in because I had talked about the crime in the black area.
Of Palm Springs?
Yeah, we had a
And
real
probably
problem
nobody
there.
knew there was a black area of Palm Springs.
I don't know, but they didn't talk about it enough. And then I remember the black people, some leaders came down to see me at the office.
It's in North Palm Springs.
Yeah.
But it was a problem people didn't talk enough about. And, so what are we going to do about it? We needed to do something about it.
Yeah. And so how did that get into the New York Times? Did somebody call you and ask you about it from there?
No, there was just somebody told me, or somebody was telling me because I didn't take the Times at that time that I got my name, and I looked it up, and there was
There you were.
Wow.
a little thing like this.
Do you have it? And did you keep it for a scrapbook?
There is a scrapbook here somewhere.
I saw it. I was looking
I
through.
forgot all about it, but and that was Grace Jablow again. She
Yeah.
did that for me. She made the scrapbook and kept it.
Yeah, I looked at it, I don't know, a year ago or something, and it's really fun to look at.
Yeah, I probably got, I never, again, that's all history. I don't even think about it anymore.
Right.
All I can tell you is the nice thing about being defeated is my law practice and got much busier.
Uh-huh.
I guess I've been neglecting it.
Oh,
So at least the income went up.
that's good. Tell me about the move to Palm Springs. What prompted that? And
All your mother's idea.
was there resistance? And
Pardon
did
me.
you have to kind of convince?
One very,
I know there was resistance from my big sister.
yes, one very
Your
wintry
little sister.
day, I remember, when all you kids were out doing something. You were over playing at a friend's, and the older ones were doing whatever they were doing, and everybody was accounted for. We decided to go out for lunch. And I remember we were down.
Oh, okay, but we got to start with something before you get there. The house, Piedmont House, was costing a fortune in taxes.
Oh.
And this was about the time that I knew I would be leaving or had left Giant. And I, Mom has always been wonderful about this. Every move we made, I knew we couldn't really afford to stay there.
That house was costing us a lot.
And we were giving too much money to charity, to the Federation, because once you get up, you can only go up higher. You don't go down in your donations. And we realized we couldn't continue that. And we were thinking, well, maybe we'd move on the other side of the tunnel in a smaller house.
Oh.
And then,
So I said to Dad, let's move to Palm Springs.
no, wait a minute, sweetheart.
No.
Mom wanted to go to France.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes.
That would have been
And
fun.
you would have loved that.
I would have loved that.
But
Everybody would have
I
loved it.
simply did not have the guts to do it.
Yeah, that would have been a scary one.
It was scary for me to even the thought of it.
Still makes you cringe.
So now go on with our lunch on a rainy
Okay,
day.
so our lunch on the rainy day, we, I think, had a Bloody Mary before lunch. So we were very relaxed, and, Dad was complaining about how we really couldn't afford the house. So I said, well, let's move. Right? it's only a house. So then we decided, well, where should we move? And we hurled back and forth, moving to the other side of the tunnel, or Rinder or further out. And then I said, let's move to Palm Springs. We had been down here several times. Aunt Ruthie and Uncle Seaman had lived here. And, but of course we knew nobody else. And
Yeah, there was really nobody at that time, right?
yeah, and so, anyway, we came down here, and, well, I guess I had asked Aunt Ruth if she knew the name of a real estate man. Well, she turned us on to a real estate man who was her age. Only, as she was very young for her age, this guy was very old for his age. He just didn't quite understand what we wanted.
And you were young. You were 42?
41. I think,
Yeah.
because didn't I have my
71.
40th birthday? No, wait a minute, that
No, you
was
had
Ricky's
his
bar
40th
mitzvah.
birthday up in Piedmont. Shortly thereafter, we moved.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
71,
Yeah.
and you were 42. You had just turned 42
Yeah.
when we moved.
So
That's so young.
first we decided it made sense to rent for a year and make sure that we really liked it. But we, at that time, now I don't think there'd be a problem. There are jillion condominiums or whatever for rent down here. But then there was practically nothing. And we looked at what little was available for rental that could accommodate our family, and we realized we couldn't go that route. So then we looked at houses to buy, and we did not like what this man was showing us. He just didn't get it.
But if I could interject, as I love to do, he took us by the house that we eventually bought.
Oh,
But he said, no, but you don't want to live here because there's this, you get a smell from the stables. So, we didn't go in or anything, we
We
just
didn't
drove
go.
by.
So then, when we met the rabbi, I think that afternoon, and he was darling. He said, is there anything I can do to help you? And we said that we were displeased with the real estate person we were working with. Could he suggest somebody for us to work with? And with that, he introduced us to Jerry and Joni Friedman, who is Joni Baker, who now lives 3 houses from us. And I guess it was Jerry or Joni, I don't remember.
Jerry took us.
And
Joni wasn't an agent then.
that's right. And we sold our house, and we loved it. And of course, it was perfect size for us. And we bought it. And we moved. We bought it in March, I think. And we moved shortly before school started. And the day that we moved into our house,
We bought it much earlier than that. Remember before, we came down here and you got sick when we went to that restaurant for dinner because it was so cold.
Hamburger Hamlet.
Yeah, hamburger. But that was like in June because you kids were either at camp or something. And then we spent a couple of months at Aptos.
right.
And
before
we didn't
moved
come
here.
down here until close to school time.
Yeah.
We didn't bring you. The house was all set.
So how long from the time that you decided that you had to leave, to move from that house in Piedmont to when we came
We
here?
sold the house on a rainy day. I remember the water was leaking through the window in the bar area, and I had towels,
Oh, God.
to collect the rain. And we sold. So I would guess that was the spring, and we bought the house. And then those are at least we didn't feel that poor. So we hired what's his face, the fat guy.
Monroe.
And he came down with
No,
Roger.
Roger.
No, we hired Monroe. And, then Monroe came down here. I think Mom flew down with him.
Oh,
Oh, to decorate the place?
Monroe was about, can you see this?
Oh, I can see one hand, yeah.
Okay, well, he's about this wide. He was about this wide. And PSA was the,
Western.
no, when we flew to Los Angeles to look at some,
Oh,
PSA was the cheap airline. And the seats were about that narrow. And so Monroe was sitting next to me with his bulk. Oh, and then he became, I guess, like short of breath. I mean, he was so obese. And I thought he was going to die next to me. They had to have the stewardess come and give him oxygen. It was a very exciting.
but the house was all for him. When we brought your kids down, it was all set to go.
Unbelievable.
And at that time we had a pool table and a ping pong table in the garage. The garage we had converted to a room.
Yeah.
And now, if you saw the house, you wouldn't believe it.
I have seen the house a couple of years ago. You don't recognize it at all.
And it's even more so now, I think, than last time
They
you
put
really
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's really
into it.
different. Huh.
So that's how we got down here.
That's how you got down here, and it probably didn't take you much time at all to make a lot of friends, and
No.
through our schools and
It was terrific.
then the temple.
People are very welcoming down here.
Because everybody was new. So it wasn't like we were the only new people in the neighborhood. That's why it was so easy to start a law practice. Because, nobody knew I hadn't been here forever, or that I hadn't been an attorney forever. I just assumed that I knew what I was doing, which I didn't.
That's great.
And when I started as a legal secretary, God knows I didn't know what I was doing, but there was a...
But you know how to use the typewriter.
Well, I remember you doing the course. You did, it was like a correspondence course.
Yeah.
Right? And I used to, like to pretend that I was doing it too.
Well, of course, what is amazing, when I decided, Dad and I decided that I would go to work as a secretary, I called out to COD, the junior college here, and asked to speak to the head of the business department. She returned my call, and I explained that I was going to work for my husband and as a legal secretary, and I needed to get the basics so that I could at least know enough to start. And she said, "Oh, Mrs. Rose, no problem. We'll create a program for you." You have a life-size picture of that happening in today's world. No. So,
wow.
Anyway, she was darling, told me what books to buy, and I was going in shortly after that, I guess to have my deviated septum repaired. And I knew I was going to be laid up for a few days, so I thought, what a perfect time to study and read the books. And so I did what little preparation I had, and Dad became just busy enough right away, and I was slow enough at what I was doing that I was really a busy cup of tea. But there was a lovely lady there, another woman who had been a legal secretary for years in the office space from which we were renting, and she was just lovely. She took me under her wing, and really, any time I ever had a question, she really taught me the ropes. So and Dad was very patient, and so it worked out.
That's
34
amazing.
Years later.
Yeah, Mom knew how to type, which was the number one thing.
Right.
And with the typewriters, and we had the first typewriter.
Oh, I hate it.
I don't remember what the first typewriter was. It must have been some sort of an electric job, but IBM came out with one that automatically spaced. So like an O took two spaces, or an M took three. I mean, it didn't make any difference to you what these different spaces were, except if you had to go back and do an erasure.
It was.
Then you had to know how many strokes to count back.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it drove Mom up the wall. So then we got one of those ball typewriters, I think.
It's electric.
Yeah.
Yes.
That made her life a lot easier.
Then we had something with the IBM cards.
Yeah, because that was our first computer with the punch cards. Unfortunately, I was, we were with Howard Sanger, who was always into, the latest innovations. So they always tried out everything, and then we just followed what they were doing.
Yeah, you really, I mean, that time that you were in practice really covered the whole,
Oh, yeah.
The innovative
It
period.
Innovation
started
of-
with carbon paper.
right, right.
We were very
Yeah, you were-
fortunate.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you liked working together, huh? Or was it ever, I mean,
We had
was
separate offices, so it worked fine.
Yeah.
Yes, only one time I remember that there was a problem with something, and you became rather impatient, and I said, "Would you like to get a new secretary?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, then enough of this." And there never was
No,
more
I shouldn't
of
say
it.
enough. It was just shut up then.
Whatever I said.
Well, whatever you said, it did the trick, right?
It worked.
Well, let's see. So you never were at a loss for something to talk about. You spent your whole day together, and then your whole evening together, and your morning,
Yeah.
and you came home for lunch together,
And went home and exercised.
and
together.
went home and exercised, and never ran out of stuff to talk about.
Can you believe that
That
we
is amazing.
did the step exercises?
I can believe it. I remember.
Do you remember?
I was inspired by that.
Yeah.
And we used to do hard exercising,
You did.
for us at least then.
I can no more do
We
that
even
than
rode
fly.
bikes.
Yeah, I remember. All right, well, there's just one more thing that I can think of right now. Last time I asked what you felt like was the best part of your lives, and you said it was raising kids. And so I was hoping that you could talk about each of your kids in turn, whatever it is about, memories of birth or babyhood or special,
I understand what you want, but before we get to that, I have to say, Mom was great about leaving the house in Piedmont and coming down here. But, when we bought at Victoria Falls again, and I came and one Sunday morning said to her, we really can't afford this house. And so she was great, and she said, then fine, let's, we'll put it on the market, and we'll find something smaller, which is how we wound up here.
Ah.
She is really, she has been a superb partner in her understanding.
Aww.
Hmm.
I think you two are just a perfect match. I mean, how often do two people, find each other and match up so perfectly?
We were
I think
very
it's very
fortunate.
rare.
It's funny how, we both realized, that we didn't have the money that we used to have, but it never dawned on us when it got to this point. I guess that's because you get to a certain point when you have no solutions and you throw up your hands and say, well, we'll just wait and see.
Cast your fates to the wind,
Yeah,
or to your
which
kids.
probably isn't the most brilliant way to do things, but
Well, I think it'll be okay.
But, ever since Piedmont, it's been a matter of trying to save money.
Mm-hmm.
And, our biggest problem probably is I didn't charge enough as an attorney. I was too modest. Never-
Yeah, I know, you were very generous.
Well, when you think of how easy it was to do a trust and how these guys get so much money for them, I think it's a bunch of bullshit, Like Sanger, he charged 2-3 times what I charged.
What does he charge for this?
I don't know anymore. I mean, it's been too long, but
Well, you were getting up there.
I think the most I ever charged anybody was $3,000 for a total plan. And, they're probably worth $5.
Yeah, attorney fees
Weren't
are
worth $5,
insane.
but I probably could have gotten $5.
Yeah.
I never was gutsy, and the biggest client I ever had was, wealthy, and I fired him because I was scared to death of the exposure. It was a second marriage, and he was older, and I mean, I could see in the future, suits, and I knew that if there was ever a suit, I'd be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I said to him one day, you really need somebody who's aggressive, and I basically am a very conservative person, and I gave him a recommendation of a guy I heard speak at, one of our education courses,
Mm-hmm.
who was in Vegas, who he wound up flying to Vegas and playing golf with, and the guy flew here and played golf with him up here. And he finally got an attorney in LA because that attorney never did anything other than play golf with him.
For $700 an hour.
But well, I don't know what he charged. I was never privy to that. But he was my wealthiest ever client. Anyway, back to your question about our kids. You answer that one.
Well, let's see. Debbie was born 61 years ago, which is more than I can cope with.
Mm-hmm. And you had been married already for, what, a year and a half when she was born?
I think more. We were married in August, and she was born in the end of October. And so...
Not the same year.
Well, it just happens that today it's the end thing.
Yeah, today as you expected.
So I guess we were married 2 years when she was born.
God only knows. But in those days, you didn't just expect to have children.
Right.
And I can remember the day that Debbie was born, thinking that I did the most brilliant thing that anybody had ever done in this world. Mm-hmm. And I was convinced of it.
And I was so upset because I wanted to call and tell everybody. We had had dinner at my folks, and her folks were at dinner too that same night. And Mom knew she was starting to have some labor pains, but we didn't tell anybody. We just said, a little tired, we're going to go home now. So we went, and then in the middle of the night, I wound up taking her to the hospital. And then the next morning, I went home, went to bed, and woke up. The next morning, as soon as I woke up, I got on the phone. She called everybody.
You ready to kill me? Yeah, that was funny.
How did you feel, Dad? Were you scared? Were you nervous or just excited or, with the baby coming?
Just seemed natural.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I was apprehensive.
And
besides, I was going to take care of her.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
In those days, today the husband
is all involved.
Is all involved, and in the labor room constantly, and in with the birth of the baby. That was not done then.
Yeah, I was just out sitting in a room.
Yeah, I don't even think you
with all the other men who were sitting in the room.
No, you weren't in the room with me when I was in labor.
No, not your room. I was sitting in the room where the men waited.
Yeah. So, which is really, when you think about it, a little inhumane, but anyway, that's the way it was.
Oh, I wouldn't have gone in there with you anyway.
Yes, you would.
I think probably a lot of men go in who maybe would rather not, or a little squeamish.
I probably would pass out if I had seen it. I mean, the whole idea
it's expected now.
It's just...
Well, Debbie was born with high forceps, which I was out.
Oh, you were out.
Oh yeah, they put me out right before she was born, so I wasn't even aware.
So your labor wasn't progressing the way it was supposed to?
No.
Oh.
In fact,
I don't remember that you were in labor a long time.
I wasn't, but it wasn't progressing, and I guess it was either that. I think in today's world they would have just done a cesarean. I don't think high forceps are the safest thing in the world.
No, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, but thank God she was fine. But and I don't even remember that she was that marked. So funny. Her first day of life, she looked at me exactly like my father, and only on that first day. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Well, I remember Ron Adler. The first time I ever saw Ron Adler, he was the most horrible looking thing I ever saw in my life. I couldn't believe a baby could be so ugly. But then by 2 or 3 days, he was fine.
It's funny with newborns.
Yeah, well, they go through a lot. I mean, if they come out, in the usual traditional way, they get all squished and
well, his face was
deformed and red and.
Well, as I remember, it was just full of wrinkles. I mean, he looked like an old man. And it was the first baby I'd ever been close to. Then he turned out to be the most gorgeous kid. I took pictures of him. He was the most beautiful boy you'd ever want to see.
A real blonde.
Yeah, total blonde, and always a happy kid, including playing with his poop. And I went up to get him one time, and he was throwing poop on the wall. Audrey! And he looked at me smiling like it was just, thought he was doing the smartest thing he ever did.
I don't remember any of our children ever doing that,
Oh.
thank God.
I don't know where you were. Well, no, we weren't married.
Oh,
Yeah.
right, you were teenager, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so go on.
So, okay, that was Debbie, and she was Dad and I both thought, because Debbie was such an easygoing little baby and toddler, and she's a very easygoing person today, that we really had this parenting thing down pat, and that we couldn't understand that other parents were so complaining about raising their children, and we were very smug because Debbie was only a real joy. I mean, she was a very
Totally easy.
easy.
We're going.
We're going, yes.
We're going. That's our favorite. We're going.
And then along came Kathy, and she made us humble. Because Kathy, God bless her, was not easy. She was a little pistol, as she turned out to be later. And she and Debbie are 2 years and 9 months apart. And I think Kathy spent her childhood trying to outdo Debbie.
Mm.
So it was pretty funny. And then along came Rick, 3 years after Kathy was born. And apparently, Ricky was born by cesarean. And so we obviously knew when he was going to be born. And I remember the story that when my mother and Dad's mother were in the waiting room, waiting, to hear what sex the baby was, when they heard it was a boy, they screamed so loud that they almost kicked them
Yeah.
out.
Oh, really?
They
were
two
so
of them.
excited.
They were really excited.
Were you there then too?
I'm pretty sure I was, because I remember I was totally embarrassed.
So, well, that's funny because, I mean, they each already had they already had grandsons. They each already had a grandson, right? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, that's right.
Gary and Ron.
Yeah.
But they were happy for you.
They were happy for us,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's very fun.
And then along came you. So
What kind of baby was Rick? And
Rick
what
was
kind of child was
very
Rick?
much like Debbie, a very easygoing.
They said he got sick a lot.
Poor little guy. When he had so much tonsillitis his first year that when he was, I think, 14 months old, he had to have his tonsils out because the doctor was really concerned he would permanently affect his hearing.
Oh.
So, normally they never take tonsils out that young because a child that young is prone to get respiratory infections, and when they don't have tonsils, they go some other place, which is more severe. And with Rick, that did happen, and that's when he started getting croup. And so poor little guy was in Children's Hospital, I think, maybe 3 times.
And then we had to take him down here to Palm Springs to get him strong so he'd be okay. I think as soon as we got back, he got into the cold.
Yeah, we had to take him down here, try and build him up so he could have his tonsils out.
And when I brought him home from the hospital, the only thing I remember is he hit me.
Good, he had it.
Well, and he couldn't talk, he wasn't really verbal. He was very
Oh,
young.
little, yeah. Aw.
Oh, it was pathetic.
Poor Ricky. Poor Ricky
Poor-
Rose.
But thank God he outgrew it all.
Mm-hmm.
Because he really had chest
He still gets infections, but
I don't think he gets chest infections anymore.
no nasal, I guess.
And thank God you were
Well, you were the easiest baby
you
we
were
ever
the
had.
frosting on the cake.
Well, I had a lot of caretakers.
Yes.
I was never bored, I'm sure.
Yes.
Never lonely.
Kathy was your second mother.
The only problem you were is that we didn't have anything for you. I mean, we didn't have a room, we didn't have furniture. We had like 2 days to get it.
I remember going into the furniture store.
Richmond? No, that was
No,
a shoe store.
no, the furniture store was out on, I think, East 14th Street.
No, I think it was on Lakeshore.
Furniture.
I know, but I still think it was there.
There were no
It was
furniture.
just baby. It was a baby store.
There were no furniture stores.
I think it was a baby store that sold cribs. Anyway, wherever it was.
Wherever we looked, that should be an issue to be
Yeah,
determined.
actually, Mom bought it. I didn't. I wasn't. I was
And,
working.
I wouldn't, I said, I'm having a baby this afternoon, actually. He looked at me. And I said, how can you get something to me? And he said, we can deliver it this afternoon. I said, okay, great.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything that your grandchildren don't know about you that you'd want them to know? About what you think about things, or some wild secret from your past?
Vote Democratic.
Oh, that's good news. Okay. I think they already do that. Oh, no, not all of them.
Not
Not
Jason.
Jason.
That's right.
How
Well,
we-
hopefully they all vote.
That's the
That's
important thing.
vote.
And
Particularly the Democrats. I don't care what Jason is.
vote their conscience. I can't think of anything.
No.
Just to know that we love them and we adore them. We hope that they will grow up to be happy, healthy human beings. What more can we ask?
Productive and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, I think it's about time I go online and see if their planes aren't going to be on time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I think of anything else
Thank
to
you.
ask, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Bore the kids with this.